image flickers to life, grainy and silent. The time stamp in the bottom right corner reads January 31, 2013. The view is from a security camera, high in the corner of a hotel elevator, its wide-angle lens distorting the narrow space. The steel doors are closed. For a few seconds, nothing happens. It's a static shot of an empty, utilitarian box. Then the doors slide open. A young woman steps in from the right. She is slight of build, dressed in a red zip-up hoodie over a gray t-shirt, black shorts, and sandals. This is Elisa Lam. She moves with a casual air, leaning forward to press a series of buttons on the control panel. She selects multiple floors. Then she retreats to the back corner of the elevator, near the wall, and waits. The doors should close. They don't. They remain wide open, revealing the dim, dated hallway of the Cecil Hotel. Elisa waits, a few more seconds ticking by. She peeks her head out, a quick, bird-like movement, looking first to the left, then to the right. She sees nothing. Or perhaps she sees something the camera cannot. She darts back inside the elevator, pressing herself against the wall, almost as if hiding from a pursuer just out of frame. The doors still refuse to close. Her movements grow more agitated. She steps back to the control panel, pressing buttons again, running her finger down the column as if to reset them. Nothing. The doors remain stubbornly open. Then she does something that will be analyzed, debated, and replayed millions of times across the globe. She steps out into the hallway. She shuffles from side to side, a strange, stilted dance. She looks left, then right. Her arms are held out stiffly at her sides. She is not running. She is not screaming. She is simply there, a ghost in the machine. She turns back toward the elevator, and her hands come up to her head, her fingers splayed. Her movements become fluid, almost expressive. She twists her hands, her fingers knotting and unknotting in the air, as if she is trying to explain something complex to someone who isn't there. Her mouth moves, but the camera captures no sound. It's a silent monologue, a frantic ballet of silent distress. Then, as suddenly as it began, she stops. She walks away, down the hall to the left, and disappears from the camera's view. Only then, after she is gone, do the elevator doors finally slide shut. They open again on another floor, and again, and again. The empty box travels up through the hotel, its programmed journey finally completing, unaware of the mystery it has just recorded. This 2.5-minute video is the last known sighting of Elisa Lam. For 19 days, it is the only clue, a chilling, inexplicable farewell from a woman who seemed to simply step out of an elevator and vanish from the face of the earth. Before she was a viral mystery, Elisa Lam was a 21-year-old student from Vancouver, British Columbia. She was the daughter of immigrants from Hong Kong, a bright, ambitious young woman studying at the University of British Columbia. To the outside world, she was just another student navigating the cusp of adulthood. But Elisa lived a second life online, one she curated with raw, and often painful honesty. On her blog, which she titled Ether Fields, she chronicled her inner world. She wrote about her struggles with depression and bipolar disorder, her anxieties about the future, and her feelings of loneliness. She posted photos of fashion models and poignant quotes from authors like Chuck Palahniuk. Her posts were a tapestry of youthful aspiration and deep-seated melancholy. "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life," she reblogged just weeks before her trip. Her posts revealed a diagnosis of bipolar I and depression. She was medicated, taking at least 4 different types of prescription drugs to manage her condition: an antidepressant, a mood stabilizer, and an antipsychotic among them. She wrote about the side effects, the weight gain, the constant feeling of being fogged in. She also wrote about the fear of relapse, the dread that her illness would derail her life before it had truly begun. But there was also a fierce desire for independence and adventure. In January 2013, she decided to embark on a solo journey down the west coast of the United States. She called it her West Coast Tour. It was a trip of self-discovery, a pilgrimage to cities she had only dreamed of. She traveled by Amtrak and intercity buses, documenting her stops in San Diego and Los Angeles. She posted photos of the San Diego Zoo, of the bookstore where the movie 500 Days of Summer was filmed. Her online entries from the trip seemed upbeat, filled with the simple joys of a tourist exploring a new world. Her final destination was Santa Cruz, but she needed a place to stay for a few nights in Los Angeles. She chose the Cecil Hotel. The Cecil was not just any budget hotel. It was a place with a history, a character soaked in the ink of Los Angeles noir. Opened in 1924, it was once a grand establishment for business travelers. But the Great Depression hit hard, and the Cecil's glamour faded, its opulence tarnished by decades of decay. Its location was its curse. Situated on Main Street, it stood on the edge of Skid Row, a 50-square-block area notorious for its transient population, its poverty, and its crime. Over the years, the Cecil became a magnet for the city's darkest elements. It was a place where people went when they were running from something, or when they had nowhere else to run to. Its history was a litany of violence and despair. It was a known site for suicides, with numerous guests leaping from its upper floor windows. It was the rumored last known location of Elizabeth Short, the victim of the infamous and unsolved Black Dahlia murder in 1947. In the 1980s, it was home to at least 2 serial killers. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, reportedly stayed there during his horrific killing spree, discarding his bloody clothes in the hotel dumpster. Jack Unterweger, an Austrian journalist and serial killer, also called the Cecil home, murdering at least 3 sex workers while he was a guest. The hotel was a paradox. By 2013, part of it had been rebranded as Stay on Main, a trendy, affordable hostel aimed at young international travelers like Elisa. It offered private rooms and cheaper, shared dormitory-style accommodations. The new branding was an attempt to paint over the hotel's grim reputation, to attract a new generation of tourists who were either unaware of its past or drawn to its edgy downtown location. Elisa Lam checked into the Cecil on January 26, 2013. She was initially assigned a shared room, a fifth-floor hostel dorm, but something went wrong. Her roommates complained to management about what they described as odd behavior. The specifics of these complaints were never made public. As a result, after 2 nights, on January 28, the hotel moved her. She was given a private room on the same floor, a room of her own, in a hotel filled with ghosts. It was from here, in the heart of this notorious building, that she would walk out her door on January 31 and never be seen alive again. The last day of Elisa Lam's known life was a blur of activity. On the morning of January 31, she was seen in the lobby of the Cecil. She was planning her next move, preparing to check out and head to Santa Cruz. She was last seen by staff at the Last Bookstore, a sprawling literary haven a few blocks from the hotel. The store's owner, Katie Orphan, remembered her. She said Elisa was cheerful and outgoing, buying books and music to take as gifts for her family back in Vancouver. She didn't seem distressed or afraid. She seemed like any other tourist enjoying a day in a new city. That afternoon, she returned to the Cecil. What happened in the hours between her visit to the bookstore and her appearance in the elevator is a blank slate. No one saw her. No one spoke to her. Her digital trail went cold. Her parents, David and Elisa Lam, expected to hear from her that day. It was their daily ritual. Elisa called home every single day of her trip without fail. It was a promise she had made them. When their phone didn't ring on the evening of the 31st, they began to worry. When a second day passed with no word, their worry turned to panic. They knew their daughter. They knew her struggles. A missed call was not just a missed call, it was a blaring alarm. They contacted the Los Angeles Police Department. Officers were dispatched to the Cecil Hotel. They searched her room. They found all of her belongings neatly packed: her laptop, her wallet, her identification, her prescription medications. Everything a person would need to continue a journey was still there. The only thing missing was Elisa herself. Hotel staff told police she had been seen that day, but no one could say for sure when she had left the building, or if she had left at all. The hotel is a labyrinthine structure with multiple entrances and exits, not all of them monitored by cameras or staff. A person could slip out unnoticed with relative ease. The initial investigation was methodical but fruitless. LAPD officers, accompanied by a canine unit, searched the hotel from top to bottom. They searched every room, the basement, and every common area. They focused on the floor where she was staying. The dog, trained to pick up a person's scent, was brought to her room. It detected her scent there, but the trail went cold in the hallway. The dog reportedly led its handler to a window in the corridor and then stopped, but it did not signal a clear path. Police then went to the roof. The rooftop of the Cecil was a stark, industrial landscape of vents, pipes, and 4 large, cylindrical water tanks. These tanks, each about 10 feet tall and 4 feet in diameter, supplied water to the entire hotel for showers, for sinks, for the kitchen. The roof was supposed to be a restricted area. Access was controlled by 3 locked doors, each equipped with an alarm. There was also a fire escape that led to the roof, but it would have been a difficult and conspicuous climb. The officers searched the rooftop. They looked around the tanks. They saw nothing out of the ordinary. The heavy, circular lids on top of the water tanks were closed. The police concluded their search of the hotel and found no trace of Elisa Lam. For the next 2 weeks, the case stalled. LAPD detectives interviewed staff and checked surveillance footage from surrounding businesses. They put out a missing persons bulletin with her photo. Her family flew in from Vancouver, posting flyers and pleading with the public for any information. The city of Los Angeles, a place that swallows people whole, seemed to have claimed another. With no leads and mounting public pressure, the LAPD made a crucial decision on February 13. They decided to release a piece of evidence to the public. They hoped it might jog someone's memory, that a witness might come forward. It was the last known footage of Elisa Lam, the silent, grainy video from inside elevator number 4. The release of the elevator video changed everything. It transformed the case from a standard missing persons report into a global internet obsession. The footage went viral almost instantly. It was uploaded to YouTube by the LAPD, and within days, it had been viewed millions of times. It was shared on Reddit, on true crime forums, and dissected frame by frame by an army of amateur online sleuths. The video was profoundly disturbing. It didn't seem to depict a woman simply waiting for an elevator. Her behavior was erratic, bizarre, and deeply unsettling. To many, it looked like she was hiding from someone. Her furtive glances into the hallway, her retreat into the corner, the way she seemed to be speaking to an unseen person, it all suggested a terrifying encounter happening just beyond the camera's view. Theories exploded across the internet. Was she being pursued by a killer? Some speculators claimed they could see the faint shadow of another person in the hallway. Was she on drugs? Her strange, disjointed movements were cited as evidence of hallucinogens, though her family insisted she did not use illegal drugs. The fact that the elevator doors failed to close for so long fueled another set of theories. Had someone tampered with the controls, holding the door open from outside? Or was it a simple mechanical malfunction in a notoriously run-down hotel? The supernatural theories were just as pervasive, fueled by the Cecil Hotel's macabre history. Some drew parallels to the Japanese horror film Dark Water, in which a ghost haunts a building's water supply and is first seen in a malfunctioning elevator. Others pointed out the eerie coincidence of her death and a local tuberculosis outbreak, which was being treated with a test called the Lam Elisa test. to thousands of people around the world, the video was not just evidence. It was a modern ghost story playing out in real time. While the internet was consumed with speculation, the reality inside the Cecil Hotel was becoming grim. For over 2 weeks, guests had been living their lives, showering, brushing their teeth, and drinking water from the hotel's taps. And for over 2 weeks, some had been complaining. They reported low water pressure. Others mentioned a strange taste and a dark, unusual color to the water. A British couple staying at the hotel described it as a funny, sweet, disgusting taste. On the morning of February 19 days after Elisa was last seen, a hotel maintenance worker, Santiago Lopez, was sent to investigate the guest complaints. He took the service elevator to the 15th floor and climbed the final flight of stairs to the roof. He disabled the alarm, unlocked the door, and stepped out into the morning light. He checked the pressure gauges and then turned his attention to the 4 large, black water cisterns. He placed a ladder against the side of the main tank. He climbed up and peered over the edge at the heavy, circular lid. He noticed it was unlatched. It wasn't wide open, but it wasn't sealed. He lifted the heavy metal lid. The water inside was still and dark. At first, he saw nothing. Then, as his eyes adjusted, he saw it. Face up, floating in the dark water just a foot below the surface, was a body. The corpse was naked. Her clothes, the same red hoodie and black shorts from the elevator video, were floating in the water beside her. So was her room key. The LAPD were called back to the Cecil. This time, it was not a search, it was a recovery. The discovery posed a series of immediate and baffling questions. The water tank was enormous, and the opening at the top was only 22 inches in diameter. The lid itself was heavy and cumbersome. How had she gotten inside? And how had the lid been closed after her? Getting her body out was a grim and difficult task. The tank was nearly full, and there was no way to lift her out through the small opening at the top. Firefighters had to be called in. They made a difficult choice. They had to cut a hole in the side of the massive metal tank. They drained the water, the same water that guests had been using for weeks, and carefully extracted the body of Elisa Lam. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office conducted the autopsy. The results only deepened the mystery. The medical examiner found no evidence of physical trauma, no signs of assault, sexual or otherwise. There were no cuts, no bruises, no broken bones that would suggest a struggle. A toxicology screen was performed to test for drugs and alcohol. The results were complex. Traces of her prescription medications were found, consistent with her bipolar disorder diagnosis. But the levels were low, suggesting she may have been under-medicating or had stopped taking her pills in the days leading up to her death. Crucially, no recreational drugs like cocaine or heroin were found in her system, nor was there any alcohol. After months of investigation, on June 21, 2013, the coroner's office released its final report. The official cause of death was listed as accidental drowning. Under other significant conditions, the report added a single, crucial phrase: bipolar disorder. The official theory constructed by investigators was a tragic story of a mental health crisis. They believed that Elisa, likely experiencing a psychotic episode due to her bipolar disorder, had made her way to the roof. The alarm-equipped doors were a problem for this theory. However, investigators pointed out that the alarms did not always function properly, and it was possible to bypass them. The fire escape was another viable, if difficult, route. Once on the roof, they theorized, she had climbed the ladder to the top of the water tank, somehow lifted the heavy lid, and climbed inside. Why she would do this remained a question. Perhaps she was hiding from a real or imagined threat. Perhaps, in her manic state, she was seeking refuge or simply felt compelled to enter the water. Investigators concluded that once inside, she was unable to get out. The water level was too low for her to reach the rim, and the sides were too slick to climb. The lid may have fallen shut on its own, or been pushed closed by her as she entered. In the end, she either drowned or died of hypothermia in the cold water. Her erratic behavior in the elevator video, initially seen as evidence of a pursuer, was reinterpreted by authorities as a manifestation of a psychotic episode. This behavior, known as thought insertion, or a response to auditory hallucinations, was consistent with some severe manic states. But for the legions of online sleuths, and for many who followed the case, this explanation felt incomplete. It left too many questions unanswered. How did a small, physically unassuming woman manage to lift the heavy lid of the water tank by herself? If the lid was so heavy, how did it get closed again after she was inside? Why were her clothes removed? The police suggested she may have removed them to stay afloat, a common behavior among drowning victims. And why was her phone never found? It wasn't in her room, and it wasn't in the tank. The theory of foul play, while dismissed by the police due to the lack of evidence, refused to die. Could a hotel employee with roof access have been involved? The Cecil was known for its transient residents and sometimes questionable staff, but police had interviewed everyone and found no suspects. The final autopsy report was clear. There were no signs of a struggle. Without evidence of another person's involvement, murder remained a speculative theory, not an investigative one. In the years following Elisa Lam's death, the mystery did not fade. It calcified into a modern urban legend, a cautionary tale for the digital age. The Cecil Hotel became a site of morbid tourism, with visitors requesting to stay on the floor where she vanished, some even attempting to access the roof. The hotel, already burdened by its dark past, became inextricably linked to the tragic, baffling story of the Canadian student found in its water tank. In 2017, the hotel closed for extensive renovations, a symbolic attempt to finally exorcise its many ghosts. Elisa's parents, David and Elisa Lam, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the hotel, arguing that the Cecil had a duty to secure its premises and prevent guests from accessing dangerous areas like the rooftop and the water tanks. In court, the hotel's lawyers argued they could not have foreseen that someone would climb into one of their water tanks. A key piece of evidence was the maintenance worker's testimony. He stated that to get to the tank, one would have to go through locked and alarmed doors, and then climb a 10-foot ladder to the platform, and another ladder to the top of the tank itself. The court ultimately dismissed the lawsuit, ruling that the death was unforeseeable and that the hotel was not liable. The case of Elisa Lam endures not because it is unsolved. Officially, it is closed, but because its resolution feels profoundly unsatisfying. The official explanation of an accidental death fueled by a bipolar episode is medically and legally plausible. It accounts for her behavior in the video and the lack of physical evidence for foul play. And yet, it fails to quiet the nagging questions, the small details that don't quite fit. The closed lid, the naked body, the sheer physical difficulty of her final act. Her story is a uniquely modern tragedy. It unfolded in the public eye, her personal struggles laid bare through her own blog posts, and then amplified by the viral nature of the elevator footage. She became a character in a story that she did not write, her complex life reduced to a set of haunting images and unanswered questions. The internet, which gave a voice to her loneliness, also became the forum for endless, often reckless, speculation about her death. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of all is the silence. The silence of the elevator video, where her frantic gestures communicate a terror we can never fully understand. The silence of the hotel staff and guests, who noticed nothing amiss. And the final, crushing silence of the water tank on the roof of a hotel in downtown Los Angeles, where a young woman on a journey of self-discovery met an end so bizarre and so lonely it continues to defy easy explanation. Elisa Lam went looking for adventure, for connection, for a life beyond the shadow of her illness. What she found was an ending that ensured she would be remembered not for the life she lived, but for the inexplicable mystery of her death. Her blog, Ether Fields, remains online, a digital epitaph frozen in time. Her last public post, made just days before she vanished, feels like an unwitting prophecy. It was a quote from the writer Milan Kundera. "The longing for paradise is man's longing not to be man." For 19 days, she was a missing person. In death, she became a ghost, an echo in the water, a permanent resident in the haunted halls of the Cecil Hotel and the darker corners of the internet. The trail for this case ends here, but the questions remain. If you have a theory, leave it in the comments.